Okay, hi everyone. So we are proceeding with solving question. So as usual, the first question asked to define some important terminologies in history. So the first one is political instability. Okay, political instability. This is a situation in which the selected government failed to stay in power at a time located constitutionally or at a period set constitutionally. So the failure of the government to stay in power at the certain period of time accordingly to constitution, that is what it calls political instability. So political instability in Africa most of the time happen in a country like Congo. Again, another terminology here is socialism. Socialism, this is a fifth mode of production which based on public ownership of major means of production. And this socialism is not involving in any form of exploitation of man by man. Another terminology is pre-colonial education. Pre-colonial education. First of all, pre, this is a prefix which means before. So pre-colonial education, this means the system of education provided in Africa before the coming of colonialists. And to add, this education was divided into two. We had formal education and informal education. So most of African society practiced the informal education, in which based on the environment. For this formal education, it was only practiced in few parts because it was a special education in which people went to the classroom having qualified teachers. They had a specific curriculum and syllabus. Another terminology I see here is Maji Maji War. This is a historic concept. Maji Maji War, this war happened in 1905 up to 1907. This war occurred in southern societies of Tanganyika against Germany. The big reason of this war was an introduction of cotton plantation. The people of southern society went against introduction of cotton because it was not a food crop. This was a cash crop. So this made a big fight between Germany and southern society, like Pogoro, Yao, Mwera, Zaramo, many tribes of African society involved. Again, another terminology is Berlin Conference. Berlin Conference, this simply a meeting took place under the seat of Germany. The seat is called Berlin. That's why they say Berlin Conference. So the aim of this meeting was to divide African continent among themselves without involving Africans. So the one who summoned the meeting was called Otto von Bismarck. Another terminology is primitive communalism. Primitive communalism. So primitive communalism, this is a first mode of production in which people live communally, all everything together, no classes, no exploitation. But one thing, primitive, the big feature of this mode of production is low technology. By this time, people use crude tools. There were no technology at all. So I think the last terminology is called abolition of slave trade. Abolition of slave trade. This was a situation of prohibiting the use of slaves in the world. This one started by 1807 during triangular slave trade, and Britain was the first nation to campaign for the abolition of slave trade. So the first question that needs a student to describe this few historic terminology is over. We go to the second portion that need a student to explain briefly. This is a short notes. Here a student would have 2 marks. So he or she needs to explain in briefly, to give a reason and explain it clearly. So the first question here is why oral tradition is considered as an unreliable source of history. The oral tradition is considered to be an unreliable source of history. The first of all, you see this as simple terminology, unreliable. Unreliable means not available, not available. So the reason why oral tradition is unreliable is sometimes it may lead to the loss of information when the one who knows the story or the information died. So due to this, the information is lost. Another reason is oral tradition depends on power of the memory. Sometimes the narrator, he or she cannot memorize well each and everything. As the result, we experience the misinformation, misreporting. So this lead to why oral tradition is an unreliable source of information. Another question is why German colonial agent would not forget Hehe resistance. Why German would not forget Hehe resistance. So German would not forget Hehe resistance because they face strong resistance. They lost many soldiers. They lost many soldiers, and for this, Germany will never forget Hehe resistance because of this reason. The consequence they got in Hehe resistance, it was very strong. Another question is how would you relate French assimilation policy and the destruction of African culture? The question is very simple. Assimilation wanted or forced the African to abandon their culture in order to be like Frenchmen, to adopt their ways of life. So for this, there is a big similarities between assimilation policy and the destruction of African culture. Another popular question is why Adolf Hitler is blamed for the occurrence of Second World War. Here many things to consider. One is, first of all, Hitler aggressive policies aggressive policies like withdrawing from the League of Nations, in which the League committed to protecting peace and security. Again, is this tendency of expansionism through conquering many states. For instance, in 1939, Hitler wanted to conquer Poland as the result Second World War. Another question is why some historians consider Otto von Bismarck as the architecture of the partition of African continent. Okay, the question is very simple, simply because Otto von Bismarck is the one who summoned Berlin Conference. The one got a vision to avoid conflict among European powers, better to have Berlin Conference. There, European power managed to divide African continent among themselves and solve the conflict among themselves. So this few, but I think it would help you to grow as a student on how to respond to the question like this in short notes, and this terminology I gave you. You may open your eyes and answer them in good way. So you have question, you may put in a comment below. For more clarification, you may comment, or any suggestion you may comment. All will be accepted and all will be responded immediately. Thank you for watching.